Hello, I'm Mary Jo Shen. Along with my husband Ted, we are supporters of ABT. I'd like to welcome our two distinguished guests today.
Hello, my name is Gillian Murphy. I'm a principal dancer with American Ballet Theater.
Hi, I'm Stella Abrera. I'm also a principal dancer with American Ballet Theater.
This is a conversation on Giselle and the incredible friendship between Stella Abrera and Gillian Murphy. You both joined ABT in 1996. Gillian, can you start us off by telling us what the company was like back then?
Well, in 1996, many of the dancers who are currently in the company were possibly not born yet or very little. So it was a very different crowd, and a lot of the dancers in 1996 were from Baryshnikov's directorship, and there were no cell phones at that time. So there was definitely a different energy in the company, but sorry, that's Axe in the background. I don't know if you can hear him, but yeah, but it was wonderful, and it's wonderful today. So it's just a little bit different, and things have changed in the world quite a bit since 1996. So I think the dancers reflect that.
Stella, how about you? Can you answer the same question?
Yes, 1996 seems like both 5 minutes ago and also two lifetimes ago. I think similarity is that the sense of camaraderie, it remains the same from the time when we joined. I just remember all the dancers, the older dancers who I looked up to and who I was in awe of. I remember I loved that many of those dancers came from the generation of ABT history that I grew up absolutely just gaga over. And so to enter that world where all these dancers had been part of the productions that I had obsessed over, checking out my VHS videotapes from the library, knowing that those dancers were in those shows was just mind-blowing to me. And of course, meeting Gillian right before we joined ABT, it just was really great to have someone who I could share those first moments with, because it's such an exciting time when you first join a big company like that, especially if it's your dream company, as I know it was for Jill as well.
Gillian, can you give us some of the names of the stars that you were looking up to at that point?
At that point, I had seen, as Stella said, the VHS videos, everything ABT. So Makarova, who wasn't dancing anymore, but she would come and work on Le Bayadere. Cynthia Harvey, who was retired, but sort of around. Cynthia Gregory, she'd also retired. But the dancers that were still dancing, who I absolutely worshipped as a young dancer, were Amanda McCarrow, Susan Jaffe, Julie Kent. And right before I joined, I'd heard about Paloma Herrera. Her star was rising very young. And so it was wild to be in the hallways with all these ballet celebrities, and to be up close, rehearsing and bantering in the locker room or listening to what they had to say. And it's really a thrilling moment to join your dream company. It's hard to explain.
Stella, how about you? Can you tell us some of the male stars from that time?
Oh, sure. Before I talk about the male stars, though, I just have to talk about how, just speaking to Gillian's point, I somehow scored the one empty locker next to Susan Jaffe in 1996. And there I was, this just ridiculous apprentice, 17-year-old, just don't know anything gal from LA, just like bursting into the locker room like a bull in a china shop. And of course, I completely freaked out having scored the locker next to Susan Jaffe. And I'm sure she was like, oh no, who is gonna move next to me and be here invading my territory. I remember very clearly just idolizing her in ballet class. She would be at the front of ballet class, and I still have it burned into my brain, her doing adagio, and just in the most sleekest, chicest ballet outfit with her leg sky high, just secure in her position, just so elegant and regal. And I just mouth wide open. So having that thought and knowing that I would be next to her in the dressing room for however long I was going to stay at ABT was a really big moment for me. And I also just remembering now as the years went on, just knowing, just being so grateful that she was ended up being such a gracious, graceful friend and mentor. She taught me so much about company dynamics, about how to act in the studio, about how to act outside of the studio, how to not take yourself so seriously, but also take your work very seriously. Anyway, one magical moment. To answer your question, the male stars, when I joined the company, there was Guillaume Graffin, there was Wes Chapman, and Jeremy Collins. Soon after I joined, Jose Carreño, of course. Angel and Ethan came soon after we did. Or was Angel already there? I think Angel was already there.
And Ethan
there. But he was already a huge star, but he was like younger than me. So that was like, whoa. So cool.
Julio Boca.
Yes, of course.
Malachi. So many amazing male stars as well. So it was quite overwhelming at first, and it took a while to get used to.
Absolutely.
You've both been friends, very close friends, best of best friends for over 2 decades, and have gone through so many milestone moments together, both on stage and off stage. How did the two of you meet, and what has kept your friendship going over all these years? Stella, do you want to start?
Jill and I met when we were both competing at the Prix de Lausanne in 1995. Is that right, Jill? So we met in Lausanne, and we were the only 2 Americans who were lucky enough to proceed to the next round, which ended up being, excitingly, on the Bolshoi stage in Moscow. So we shared that adventure right off the bat, and a few months later we met again as company members at ABT. It feels like 2 lifetimes ago, but also 5 minutes ago. I can still feel the excitement of being a new company member, and you definitely share a bond with people who you join the company with, because there's so many adventures that you experience together on stage and off stage and on tour and in rehearsals and in the dressing rooms. There's just, like I mentioned before, a special camaraderie that is unique and unlike any place else. I think what's kept me going at ABT is my friendship with Jill. To be able to, being a ballet dancer can be very stressful, and to be able to go into the locker room where Gillian and I now are next to each other, to be able to just let it all out, whatever's just happened or whatever is on your mind, and whatever you're going through, and to be able to have that support system has been absolutely invaluable to me all these years. She's the most incredible sounding board. She's the biggest cheerleader. I'm gonna start crying.
Okay, you need to
edit this out.
Stella's the biggest cheerleader. And I'm just gonna butt it. Stella has been the most fun, empathetic, non-judgmental best friend that one could ever imagine. So we have so many shared experiences traveling the world together, ups and downs of a professional ballet career on stage can be stressful, as Stella said, and injuries can be stressful, and just being there for each other through the years is an amazing gift. And I'm just so grateful for Stella's friendship and for yours, Mary Jo.
Well, the two of you,
all to that.
The two of you are each other's biggest champions. Both of you are superstars, and you, in the ballet world and out of the ballet world, you're known for not only your incredible artistry, but your championing of the young dancers who are with the company, the newbies, and also not promoting yourselves, but always promoting each other. That's a rare quality in the arts. One of ABT's most popular productions is Giselle. It's so heartbreaking and so beautiful. And Gillian, how about the first time you performed Giselle? Can you tell us about that?
The first time I performed the role of Giselle? That was fairly recently. Oh, we have sun coming in. Is that weird? It is what it is, I guess. By the way, Stella and I are not in the same house. We just both like wood paneling or siding. Okay, so I didn't dance the role of Giselle until a few years ago. And the first time I danced it was with the Royal New Zealand Ballet in a production that was created by my husband, Ethan Stiefel, and his co-creator was Johan Coburg. And they believed in me to embody the role of Giselle. And I have to say they believed in me before I did, because I had been Myrta for so long. I started dancing the role of Myrta when I was 19 years old at ABT. I got thrown into it at the last minute, and after that first show, I've really done it ever since. For 20 years. So my first performance with ABT as Giselle was, I think it was three or 4 years ago, pretty recent. And it was just really incredible because I was fortunate to have had the experience in New Zealand, dancing the role many times around the country there, and really, I mean, I think I danced it about maybe almost 20 performances or something, which is unheard of at ABT because usually we just get one show a year. So my first show at ABT, I actually felt like I had some momentum, and I had all that performance experience in the role to dig deeper and to try different things. It's a different production, but the character of Giselle is pretty much the same. So it was a major moment for me personally and professionally to finally dance that iconic role.
And who was your Albrecht?
My Albrecht at ABT for my debut was David Hallberg, and he was just returning to the stage after an epic injury. So our first show together in Giselle was really emotional. I was dancing this role that I'd been wanting to do for so long, but I'd never done at ABT, and he was coming back from years of being injured. So that's even, a lot more emotional. And so we were really in it together and embraced our vulnerability and our nerves and just went there and enjoyed the whole journey that the ballet can bring.
Beautiful. Stella, how about you? What was your first performance of Giselle like?
Well, let me just tell you that I was there for Gillian's Giselle debut, the one that she was just talking about. And it was just ABT Giselle debut. And it was so moving. She had all of the cast members completely transfixed. She looked like an absolute angel in the mad scene, just like a Botticelli painting. I just remember feeling so, just so moved and happy for her, because I knew it was such a big moment. My first Giselle performance happened to be in the Philippines. I got an opportunity to be a guest artist, and I was able to bring James Whiteside with me as my first Albrecht. He came all the way across the world to the Philippines with me, and we performed together. So that was my first, kind of like Gillian. I got a few under my belt. I also got to be a guest artist doing Giselle with the Australian Ballet. That was for an exchange. Kevin Mackenzie was so lovely to nominate me to be the exchange person to represent ABT and go to Australian Ballet and perform at the Sydney Opera House, which was the most magical experience. So picture it, it's 2015 and we are performing at the Metropolitan Opera House. And sadly, a guest artist from another company, gorgeous ballerina, was unable to perform Giselle. And I think because I had gotten a few performances under my belt in other companies, Kevin called me into his office and said, I would like you to prepare for this show of Giselle in 10 days. And so 10 days later, I opened Giselle's door and did my first few steps out there. And that was my ABT Giselle debut. And it happened to be on an ABT alumni evening. So that was extra special.
Both of you have danced the roles of Myrtha and Giselle in Giselle. Which character traits of Myrtha and Giselle do you most connect with, and why?
Can I say why the attributes that connect Stella to Myrtha and Stella to Giselle? Yes. First of all, for Myrtha, she is intimidatingly gorgeous. And that is a really perfect attribute to have as Myrtha. Other than that, she is much more like Giselle in every way. So she's totally connected to being Giselle, to being joyful and vulnerable and passionate and loving. So I think it was inevitable that Stella was going to be such a perfect Giselle.
Gillian, that's beautifully put. Stella, let's flip the question. What characteristics do you see in Gillian for Giselle and Myrta?
Obviously, Gillian's fierce ferocity and strength are just so spectacular to behold when she performs Myrta. Just the ease and steely gaze, the ease of her technique and her steely gaze are two things that definitely come to mind when I conjure up memories of Jill's Myrta. Gillian's Giselle is just so full of heart and vulnerability and delicacy and just perfect, innocent love of dance and of life and for Albrecht. And it just comes across so clearly whenever she performs Giselle, all of those things. So that's why I think she's one of the most gorgeous Giselles.
Thank you, Stella.
Gillian, can you tell us how you prepare for the role and what's some of the best coaching advice that you've been given for the role of Giselle?
I think each time I revisit the role, I have a different preparation. Of course, it's always about making sure all the technical elements are in order, particularly the first act solo and the tricky adagio sections and the sustained moments in the second act. But the main part of preparing for Giselle is really getting into the character's frame of mind and preparing to go on that journey so that really anything can happen in the performance. It's not going to be the same as any rehearsal. It's not the same as any other performance, but it's, I don't know, it's always different. I think I spent a lot of time thinking about the role when I first performed it, and since then it's sort of building off that. There's kind of layers, hopefully, that are happening. And one of the best pieces of advice was when I was questioning me doing the role, because I'd always been told I was much more of a Myrta type, which was fine. You know, I consider that a compliment as well. But one of the main pieces of advice that really helped me was that I was suited to the role, that I have a shyness and a good-heartedness as a person. Hopefully that's true. That I can share through the character, and to really just trust my intuition and to go with the flow and to enjoy the journey that is, you know, portraying a character such as Giselle. The journey is never over, and it's incredibly fulfilling.
And Stella, what would you say is some of the best coaching advice that you've been given, and what is your preparation for the role?
You know, apart from the obvious technical coaching that happens with every role, I think to approach the character, it was easy to feel intimidated by the fact that it's one of the oldest ballets ever created, and that there are hundreds of legendary ballerinas who have made that role their own. To realize that I didn't have to try to be one of them or any of them or little bits and pieces of each of them. The point I was in my career when I got the opportunity to tackle the role, I had experienced enough, couple decades of being a professional ballet dancer to I just had to trust, and people kept telling me to just trust, like Jill said, trust my instincts and not try to be all those people who I had idolized or studied, or it wasn't about emulation. It was about embodying the character in the moment. So that was maybe the hardest thing to realize and hardest thing to trust, was my own my own instinct. But I think that was, once I made that commitment, it was a breakthrough.
I imagine that Giselle must be one of those roles, like a great Shakespearean heroine, that, as you say, other great ballerinas have taken on the role. But having sat in the audience and seen you both perform this role numerous times, you both have such an individual style and way of bringing Giselle to life. On Saturday, June 13th, Stella would have given her farewell performance in Giselle. Stella was slated to perform as Giselle, while Gillian was slated to perform as Myrta. With the unfortunate cancellation of ABT's spring season due to the current pandemic, how are you coping with the realization that your farewell, Stella, will look different than originally planned?
Well, thank you for asking that question. With the current circumstances, I find it difficult on one hand to compare any kind of feelings of loss that I have regarding this performance. I find it difficult to compare that sense of loss with the immense loss that so many people in the world have and are continuing to feel because of the pandemic. It also makes me even more appreciative, and really, I just feel so blessed to have had 24 years of this experience in the way that we've known it, and performing and being part of a creative process, being part of a ballet company for so long in a way that we hope to come back to. So there's that side. There's that rational side of my brain. There are definitely moments when I hear Romeo and Juliet music and I feel regret that I won't get to perform that again, when I was so looking forward to it. That was a role that I didn't have as many chances to perform. So then that will be a moment where I will let myself succumb to feelings of sadness and loss. Let me backtrack. 10 years ago, I had a really severe back injury that took me off stage for 2 years. Jill was right there by my side every day, just cheering me on. Since then, I was very lucky and determined, and very lucky to get back on stage, and I was able to do that. And I clawed my way back onto the stage, and I vowed to myself when I got back on that stage doing what I loved, I knew that I would try to think of every show as potentially my last. Mm-hmm. So in a way, I almost feel like I have been preparing for my final show for the last, 8 years, 10 years. And I will say that I did get to perform Giselle at the end in February at the Kennedy Center, which is a beloved theater for me. I think many of us ABT dancers hold the Kennedy Center in a special place in our hearts. And I had a just stupendously magical experience with James Whiteside as my Albrecht. it was kind of gonna be like it was like part of one of the steps towards the crossing finish line. But I do remember thinking, as I always have in the last 10 years, this could be my final show. And turns out it was. And you know what? That might be the best way. How great to not feel that stress of walking on stage and knowing that it's the last time, like actually knowing it's the last time. I knew it was going to happen. I knew it was the moment where all dancers have to walk through the fire and everyone always comes out on the other side. They always do. But I knew that experience was going to be really intense. So in one way I could think of it as I was spared the walking through the fire, and now I have that amazing memory of the Kennedy Center performance being a magical one. I mean, James and I shared wonderful, wonderful memories that I'll always cherish. And I had so many great moments with people on stage that I'm close to. So that it's a lot of babbling, but I'm still processing what it all means. But that's where I'm at right now.
Thank you.
There's still so many unknowns. And so, yeah. So that's where I am right now. Thank you for asking.
And Gillian, a special part of that performance was going to be that both of you would be on stage together. How is it different to have your best friend on stage with you?
It's just that much more special when we're on stage together. So I've always treasured our performances together as some of my most favorite performances. In the upper room, just surviving together, but also enjoying it and just going through all that aerobic Twyla Tharp energy to the end through that Philip Glass music. Symphony Concertante, where we're literally counterparts. And one of my favorite memories was, once again, it was an ABT alumni evening. So another alumni evening was when Stella had everyone weeping with her Giselle debut at the Metropolitan Opera House. And this ABT alumni evening that I'm thinking of right now as well, and we don't get together that often, so it's usually Stella performing for these evenings. But this other one, Symphony Concertante, we're supposed to do, Stella does a double pirouette, and then on the other side of the stage, I do a double pirouette. But Stella did a triple pirouette. The whole audience gasped in awe. And then I did a double pirouette. And we just had this look. We just looked at each other, and it was just took all of our being to keep it together. Just so many moments where we just, obviously we don't have to say anything. We know what each other's thinking, and we know we're going to have a really good laugh about it. And with being just Stella's, not Giselle's, but Stella as Giselle, her Myrta, it was just going to be really special to pay tribute to her by killing myself doing that killer role in honor of Stella, because I'm not sure how many more Myrtas I have in me, to be honest. So that, I think that was my last Myrta that was going to happen this week, and instead that's kind of retired as well. But that's definitely a side note. And Stella's just, I mean, so full of grace and humility at all times. So her explaining her process for, not having this farewell is just kind of heart-wrenching, but so true to Stella's character that she's just been the most magical dancer. And once again, she's thinking of other people first. And we're just all going to celebrate her anyways, in our own way and through social media. And when we can all get together, we're going to have a huge party and watch bootleg videos that no one's allowed to see, that like some major fans have sent to us.
There will be a very special celebration because so many people want to honor Stella. Stella, what are you most looking forward to after the quarantine?
Thank you. Jill, first of all, can I just say how grateful I am to you for always being so such a cheerleader, such an amazing support system, and just the best. Just the best.
You're the best.
Also, just to go back, the reason we had that special look across the stage, the Met, after a symphony concerton, was because my triple pirouette is like a biennial event. So the fact that I was able to pull it off on stage, I think that was like the one triple pirouette I've ever done in my 24 years. Like, no joke. That on top of the fact that you do triple pirouettes like with your eyes closed, and I've seen you do it with your eyes closed, and I've also seen you do 20 pirouettes with your arms flopping around like a swan. So it was just kind of ironic. It was hilarious. It was just like the sheer hilarity of that moment was why we looked at each other, because of that. Because a triple pirouette to me is like a miracle. So I'm just setting the straight. What was the question again?
Okay, how about this? Stella, can you share with us how you've been creating or just coping during this surreal pandemic?
Yes. So I'm so lucky and grateful that as I'm transitioning out of my beloved ABT, that I am taking on the role of artistic director at Kotzbahn Cultural Park for Dance, which is a wonderful choreographic residency property in upstate New York. It inspires so many artists to create dance. It inspires dancers to train really hard, and I'm so excited to take on that role.
And congratulations on your new role. Gillian, how about you? You have a young son. How have you been creative or coping during this pandemic?
First of all, I've been amazed at Stella just working all day, every day, teaching so many classes, and at you, Mary Jo, all of the ways that you help ABT and all the arts and the world and all this joy you spread is just incredible. And I haven't been as motivated or as productive as the two of you, but I've been really focused on just spending this time with my baby and just savoring his fleeting babyhood. He's 11 months old now, so he's changing every day. He's moving around a lot more and more. He's cruising, which is when they start walking around, but they're holding on to things. And so soon he'll be walking. So I spend my days mainly focused on him and just enjoying this time with my baby and with my husband, Ethan.
Post-quarantine, I'm very much looking forward to getting back to my seat at ABT. Thank you so much for joining us today. I urge you to consider supporting the company by donating to the ABT Crisis Relief Fund.